on Arirang NEWSCENTER tonight. U.S. and China made progress toward a draft UN sanctions resolution to punish North Korea for its recent nuclear missile tests and push it to the negotiating table, say top diplomats of the two countries. Korea-China ties hang in the balance. South Korean government calls in the Chinese ambassador to Seoul over Beijing envoy's remarks that bad deployment would destroy South Korea-China ties. And Korea's main opposition party lawmakers continue their marathon filibuster, the longest in the country's history, to block the passage of an anti-terrorism bill. President Park calls it deplorable. NEWSCENTER begins right now. It is 8 a.m. in New York, 12 noon in London, and 10 on a Wednesday night here in Seoul. Hello and welcome to our viewers all across the globe. You're watching Arirang NEWSCENTER. Let's kick things off in Washington. The U.S. and China inch closer to finishing their adjustments on UN Security Council sanctions against North Korea. Top diplomats of the two countries say important progress has been made on crafting measures to make Pyongyang pay the price for its latest UNSC violations. Our Kwon Jang-ho has the top story tonight.
Wrapping up talks in Washington on Tuesday, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry both said significant progress had been made on the adoption of a UN sanctions resolution against North Korea for its latest provocations.
Important progress has been made in the consultations, and we are looking at the possibility of reaching agreement on the draft resolution and passing it in the near future.
There is no question that if the resolution is approved, it will go beyond anything that we have previously passed.
Kerry added that the draft was in the appropriate evaluative stages, indicating it'll be hard to predict when the adoption will come, although there has been word it could happen as early as this week. Kerry and Wang also shared their thoughts on resuming the long-stalled six-party talks, including North Korea, on the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. But the Chinese minister reiterated Beijing's two-track approach to Pyongyang that stresses the importance of dialogue while also calling for concurrent peace treaty talks. Earlier this week, the U.S. revealed that North Korea had made a proposal recently, but that those talks could only happen if denuclearization remained the top priority. On the planned deployment of a U.S. missile defense system known as THAAD to the Korean Peninsula, Kerry said that if we can get to denuclearization, there is no need to deploy THAAD, in a move to reassure Wang that it won't pose any threat to China. Although the Chinese are deeply opposed to the planned deployment, Wang did not offer a direct comment on the issue, but did say related countries should refrain from actions that could heighten tension on the Korean Peninsula. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
There are reports from the Chinese media that Beijing will halt trading coal with Pyongyang. Now, coal accounts for more than 40% of the entire bilateral trade volume between the two sides. The Chinese government has yet confirmed the move, but if true, it'll add to growing list of punitive actions against North Korea. Our Oh Soo-young has all the details of these emerging reports.
A coal company in the Chinese border town of Tandong received orders to stop trade and all business with North Korea starting next month. According to a report Wednesday by the state-run Global Times newspaper, the order came from Beijing's Commerce Ministry. It cited an unnamed businessman as saying that the trade freeze is part of the government's financial measures against Pyongyang for its fourth nuclear test on January 6th. In line with this, some 50% of trade between the two countries will be halted. The source added that trade relations will likely be restored in May, depending on Pyongyang's attitude. This comes after earlier reports this week that several banks in the same province of Liaoning suspended money transfers and deposits for North Korean accounts. An official statement regarding the alleged freeze on coal trade has yet to be made from the Chinese government. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The South Korean government summoned the Chinese ambassador to Seoul this Wednesday, demanding an explanation on his remarks that he made last night regarding the potential deployment of a U.S. THAAD missile defense system on the Korean peninsula. Our Kwon So-ah has the details.
The foreign ministry called in Chinese ambassador to Seoul, Chiu Kuo-hong, on Wednesday over remarks he made a day earlier to South Korea's main opposition Minju Party leader Kim Jong-in. During talks, he told Kim that a U.S. THAAD deployment could destroy Korea-China relations in an instant. Seoul's Deputy Minister for Political Affairs Kim Hong-gyun demanded a sincere explanation for the comments to determine whether they were personal in nature or the stance of the Chinese government. According to the ministry, Ambassador Chiu acknowledged the issue is a sensitive matter and vowed continuous efforts on developing the relationship between South Korea and China. China's foreign ministry spokeswoman Hua Chuning was reportedly skeptical of the accuracy of the wording could be destroyed, but expressed hopes the THAAD issue would not affect long-term bilateral ties. Earlier in the day, the presidential office of Cheongwade made clear that a THAAD U.S. missile defense system on South Korean soil would aim to protect the nation from North Korea's continual threats, no matter how strongly China objects. Presidential spokesman Chung Yun-guk told reporters Wednesday that a THAAD deployment is part of South Korea's arsenal of countermeasures against North Korea's provocations based on its right to self-defense. South Korea and the U.S. are set to start working-level talks soon on the deployment of the controversial missile defense system. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, tensions between South and North Korea continue to escalate. In the latest cross-border war of words, Seoul has warned Pyongyang to halt its provocations, saying its reckless actions would only speed up the collapse of the dictatorial system. Now, this is in response to North Korea's threat last night that it would target Seoul's presidential office with a preemptive strike. Our Connie Kim files this report.
South Korea has blasted North Korea for denouncing an upcoming annual round of military drills between Seoul and Washington. The Joint Chiefs of Staff released a statement on Wednesday calling on North Korea to halt all provocations. Seoul also warned it would hold Pyongyang responsible for any situation stemming from its reckless provocations, which it said would expedite the collapse of its dictatorial system. North Korea views the drills as a rehearsal for an invasion, and its condemnation of them is typical. But this time, the North went as far as to target the presidential office of Cheongwade. In the statement released on Tuesday, the North said it would launch a preemptive strike against any provocations from South Korea or the U.S. and vowed to also target U.S. military bases in the Asia-Pacific and the U.S. mainland. Undeterred, Seoul and Washington are going forward with a tabletop exercise in the U.S. starting Wednesday to bolster their military capability in the wake of North Korea's recent nuclear and long-range missile test. During the annual 3-day discussion-based drill, Seoul and Washington will focus on ways to preemptively strike North Korea if there are signs that Pyongyang is preparing to conduct a nuclear or missile test. The allies will also review the United States' extended deterrence military assets. A high-level defense official also said he could not rule out the possibility of a discussion on a rearrangement of Washington's tactical nuclear weapons. Seoul and Washington's efforts to deter any further provocations from the North, while Pyongyang continues to lash out against the two allies, is sure to raise tensions on the peninsula. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, in Korea's parliament, lawmakers from the main opposition party are still at the podium, continuing a marathon filibuster that they kicked off last night to keep a long-stalled counterterrorism bill from gaining approval. We go live to our parliamentary correspondent Shin Se-min. She's been following the developments there since the very beginning. Now, Se-min, the main opposition is still going very strong, breaking records for their lengthy speeches.
That's right, Kanyang. 27 hours and still counting. And even as we speak, the Justice Party lawmaker Park Won-suk has been delivering his speech for the past couple of hours now in his sneakers, something that we should make note of, as that already signifies that he, the lawmaker, is ready to give all he has out on the floor. And at the same time, as the hours pass by, it's an indication that it's an exhausting phase for everyone here at the National Assembly, for both both the opposition lawmakers delivering the speeches for hours, and on the other, the lawmakers having to sit through it all. But despite all this, the Minju Party of Korea has vowed is certain that they will continue through its filibuster to eventually draw out on the outcome they desire, which is eventually blocking the passage of a pending counterterrorism bill. The filibuster session all began with the representative Kim Kwang-jin of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea taking the floor at 7 p.m. Tuesday evening, followed by Moon Byung-ho of the People's Party, then on to Eun Soo-mi of Minju Party. Eun Soo-mi alone spoke for 10 hours and 18 minutes, breaking the Korean records set by Representative Park Han-sang in 1969 and the late former President Kim Dae-jung in 1964. She even outpaced Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who spoke for 8 hours and 37 minutes while filibustering in the U.S. Congress back in 2010. And as I've mentioned, it's not just the main opposition Minju Party taking the floor, but also the lawmakers from the minor opposition People's Party and the Justice Party siding with their Minju Party counterparts. The marathon filibuster session is the first of its kind since the rule was adopted in 2012, and this one was initiated by the Minju Party of Korea after the Assembly Speaker Chung Ih-hwa moved to call a vote on the legislation.
Semin, we should keep in mind that the rival parties did strike a deal, a last-minute agreement on a bill that would redraw the country's electoral map. Of course, we reported that the bill will be put up for vote this Friday. Now, wouldn't the filibuster session have to come to an end for the lawmakers to vote on that bill?
That's right, but for now it seems like it's going to have to wait until somebody comes up with the answer, as the Minju Party of Korea vowed that they will continue with the current filibuster session until the end of the current extraordinary session that ends on March 10th. But at the same time, it said it'll do all it can to address the situation, so it'll take some time to see whether the ongoing filibuster will jeopardize the two pending bills that are counterterrorism and, as you said, the country's electoral map bill, or even reach an agreement in the end. But so we don't know for sure exactly how the rival political parties will handle the issues at the same time, but I should take note that Korea's electoral map is something that cannot be disregarded. But at the center of all this is the counterterrorism bill that we've been talking about. And just to give you a background of the opposition party is concerned that the bill will give the National Intelligence Service the power to conduct surveillance on citizens. Now, the ruling Saenuri Party and the president, however, say that the bill will better protect the public and the nation amid the growing threats from North Korea and the international terrorism organizations. That's all I have for now. This is Shin Se-min reporting live from the National Assembly.
Well, hopefully the night won't be too long for you, Semin, or Shin Se-min from the National Assembly. Thank you. The filibuster has not only stalled the counterterrorism bill, but it has reignited the wrangling between the country's rival parties, sending them straight back to trading barbs, even as they try to promote their positions. Our political correspondent, Ji Myung-gil.
The ruling Saenuri Party on Wednesday accused the main opposition Minju Party of Korea of holding a government-led counterterrorism bill hostage in the hopes of gaining an advantage in an upcoming general election.
It is regrettable that the Minju Party of Korea is using the security bill as a political tool to gain the upper hand in the April election. Without national security, everything will collapse. The security bill is not a choice, it's a necessity.
The floor leader said the bill is desperately needed, especially after the National Intelligence Service revealed last week that North Korea's spy agency is currently planning to launch terrorist attacks against South Korea on orders from its leader, Kim Jong-un. Under the bill, a new counterterrorism control center would be established and the nation's spy agency would be given the authority to collect information on terror suspects. The Minju Party objects to the bill, saying it is concerned about the spy agency's reputation, which has already been tarnished through its involvement in a series of political scandals.
The bill gives the National Intelligence Service the power to violate citizens' privacy by wiretapping phone calls and intercepting emails, text messages, and messages on the smartphone chatting app KakaoTalk in the name of terrorism. We cannot allow such a scandal-ridden agency to do this.
The minor opposition People's Party said the NIS is an unreliable agency and called for National Assembly Speaker Chung Yu-ah and the rival party leaders to hold further negotiations on the issue. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Well, President Park Geun-hye is not happy about what's unfolding in Parliament. She's called the situation deplorable. Park Ji-won has more.
Chairing an economic consultation meeting on Wednesday, President Park Geun-hye had harsh words for lawmakers from the opposition parties and called on them to stop blocking a counterterrorism bill. She said the economy cannot thrive in an unstable society where acts of terrorism could happen at any time.
많은 국민이 희생을 치르고 나서 통과를 시키겠다는 얘긴지 이거는 정말 그 어떤 나라에서도 있을 수 없는 기가 막힌 현상들이라고 생각을 합니다.
President Park Geun-hye also urged the parliament to do its legislative duty before this assembly ends its term in May. She called on lawmakers to pass a package of economy-related bills, including bills on labor reform that her administration has been promoting. She said it is deplorable that all the necessary bills to create jobs, especially for the nation's young people, have been awaiting a vote for so long. She added that making the nation's labor market more flexible would generate new growth momentum and strengthen the economy. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye enters her fourth year in office tomorrow. To mark the occasion, we are broadcasting a series of reports this week about her successes and failures and look at what might be in store going forward. In part 3 of our 5-part series, our national defense correspondent Kim Hyun-bin focuses in on the president's handling of security and defense-related matters.
Since the start of her term in office, President Park has had to handle a continuous stream of threats from North Korea. The most recent being Pyongyang's fourth nuclear test, its firing of a long-range missile, and the planting of landmines in the demilitarized zone that badly injured 2 South Korean soldiers. Some analysts say the president's handling of these tense incidents has left a strong impression.
The Park administration has always responded sternly to North Korea's provocations, diffusing further escalation, even getting close to an apology from the North for last August's mine. But the real test is how her administration will enhance its defense structure for the remainder of her term to better counter the regime's threats, including its nuclear capabilities.
Pyongyang has been enhancing its ballistic missile and nuclear capabilities. In order to combat this growing threat, Seoul decided to address the possibility of deploying the U.S. Terminal High Altitude Area Defense to the peninsula. Prior to the regime's missile testing early this month, the Korean government had been adhering to a so-called no principle on the issue, as in no request, no consultation, no decision.
The government has since backed off its 3-no policy and has instead shifted its focus to put national interest at the forefront. The sudden change garnered controversy. The government should have made it clear from the start that the deployment of THAAD would be decided upon based on national interest.
With an unpredictable neighbor looming just north of the border, there are many issues and tasks President Park needs to address during the remainder of her time in office. President Park has established a system of creative national defense which aims to employ advanced technology to enhance South Korea's military capabilities and gain an edge over North Korea. The list of high-tech weaponry includes unmanned surface vehicles capable of conducting offshore missions and robotics to boost frontline surveillance capabilities. Troops will also be equipped with state-of-the-art gear. Despite the ambitious goals, the project hasn't made much progress over the years.
The South Korean government has been trying to make creative defense a reality, but there's no quick fix. We got an initial boost and saw some economic benefits, but we'll have to wait and see how it pans out.
Experts say Seoul has some issues to iron out to better protect itself against North Korea's threats. Most importantly, though, They say the military needs to back the government's North Korea policies.
We need to be able to promptly respond to any provocation and adapt our strategy, equipment and systems where necessary. Our military needs to strongly back the government's policies and try to change North Korea's views while strongly countering any threats.
Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Time after time, snowballing debt has been cited as a potential threat to the Korean economy. Well, with fresh figures out from the final quarter of 2015, those concerns may further weigh down the government as the total sum has yet again hit a record high. Not only that, it grew at the fastest pace in 9 years. For the numbers and more, here's Hwang Ji-hye.
The Bank of Korea says household debt, which includes sales on credit, hit a record high of 1,200 trillion won. That's around $1 trillion as of the end of last year. This is the largest amount logged since 2002 when related data were first compiled. It's also up roughly $100 billion from a year ago, marking the fastest pace of growth on record. The rise was led by the growth of household loans, including mortgages, on the back of an upbeat real estate market. The growth of sales on credit that shot up in the third quarter last year due to measures to jumpstart spending, leading to high credit card bills, this time slowed down slightly. The household debt problem is cited as a potential risk by many economists, with growing fears about the property market losing steam in the next 2 to 3 years. But they also add that it's already a burden to the economy as it's stacked up with longer-term issues like the aging population.
People are choosing to save instead of spend, facing uncertain economic conditions. And they also want to prepare for post-retirement. This kind of tendency won't change easily.
The rise in household debt in the fourth quarter actually also has to do with government measures to clamp down on debt. Ahead of tighter guidelines when screening applicants for loans that kicked in this month, more people who are looking to borrow turned to banks before those measures went into force. So now, with policymakers unleashing fresh efforts to tackle swelling debt levels, eyes are focused on whether those numbers start showing some changes in the first quarter of this year. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
After reviewing the guidelines and studies from the World Health Organization as well as from countries with reported cases of the Zika virus, the Korea Center for Disease Control and Prevention has put out stricter guidelines. For the specifics, let's turn to our Lee Ji-won.
Facing a greater possibility of the Zika virus being sexually transmitted, the Korea Center for Disease Control and Prevention tightened its recommendations for men and women who have been to Zika-affected nations. According to the newly announced guidelines, if either partner has visited a country with reported cases of the virus, they should practice greater measures of abstinence or use protection. For women who are looking to become pregnant, the center said they should wait for at least 2 months instead of the previously recommended 1 month after returning from infected areas. For men, the center recommends if their partners are pregnant to either abstain or use a condom during the term of pregnancy as opposed to using protection for just 1 month. Even if they're not pregnant, the guideline recommends abstinence and condom use for 2 months instead of a month. These changes come on the back of new research that suggests the virus can be transmitted through body fluids such as semen. As of now, there are only 2 cases with sexual transmission being confirmed as a cause of infection, but a growing number of cases with the virus detected in the semen have surfaced.
When a patient has a high level of the virus in his or her blood, there's a chance the virus could spread into other body fluids such as semen, which leads to the possibility of it being transmitted through sexual intercourse.
There are currently 35 countries that have reported new cases of the Zika virus in the past 2 months, but no cases have been reported in Korea yet. The Korea CDC said it will continue to collect information on the virus and analyze the data to change their recommendations accordingly. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, Mobile World Congress is in full swing in Barcelona, and the news keeps on flowing. Samsung's Galaxy S6 Edge smartphone has grabbed the top award at this year's event, while its smart wearable, the Gear S2, snatched top honors for the best connected consumer electronics device in the best mobile handsets and devices category. Samsung's mobile communications president Ko Dong-jin said the company remains committed to providing devices inspired by consumers and has always focused on progress and innovation. But it's not just these global household names that have grabbed attention at this year's Mobile World Congress. A number of up-and-comers are also under the spotlight. Our Kim Ji-yeon has been on site covering the event from day one, and she files this report from Barcelona.
This year's Mobile World Congress is not only an invitation for global tech giants to step up, but it's also a great business opportunities for startups and their creative inventions. Korean startup Dot has unveiled the world's first Braille smartwatch for the visually impaired. The face of the device is covered in 30 Braille dots. They can be used to help the user type and send messages. A special module set meant the watch could be shrunk to a wearable size. It also ensured the device could come with an affordable price tag of $300 US. Dot says it plans to sell its products starting next year in G20 countries and hopes to develop the world's first Braille pad in the near future.
We worked with a lot of visually impaired people to maximize their sense of touch using Braille. In the process, we learned that one of their biggest worries was that they could break it easily since they're not used to handling sophisticated devices on their own. So we addressed their concerns by fitting the device with the strongest aluminum material we could find.
This smartphone case by Korean startup 24/7 is equipped with a stun gun for emergency protection. The flip of a switch located on the back of the phone, the case can emit up to 100,000 volts of electricity and notify police in under 2 seconds. 24/7 says the device is easy and safe to use.
This was really safe because unless you put your finger in it, safety finger, it's not going to be activated. And we also have the safety button. You're going to have to push it up to activate it. So actually you're going to have to put your fingertip, and then after that you're going to have to push it up to activate the stun gun. So it's pretty safe when you're on the phone.
24/7 thinks participating in the MWC will help them realize their goal of finding a business partner so it can launch products in other countries, in particular in the US and Europe. The startup says it wants to launch its app called Halt around May and the phone case sometime during the second half of this year. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News, Barcelona.
U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump has done it again, this time defeating Republican rivals in the state of Nevada. Bruce Harrison is live in the studio with me. Now, Bruce, before we get into how Trump keeps winning, break down his victory in Nevada.
Sure, Kanyang. Trump had no trouble winning Nevada, and political strategists say that his brash anti-government talk and his ties to Las Vegas, in particular the gambling industry, really appealed to residents there. He edged Senators Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz by double digits, and media outlets even called the win almost as soon as the polls closed.
Well, Trump has now won 3 of the 4 early voting states. And now the billion-dollar question, how does he keep doing it?
How does he keep doing it? Well, he's played up his outsider status. He's completely unapologetic about his political policies, and that's resonated with a lot of frustrated working-class Americans that are upset with a gridlocked Washington. Also, he's been aided by a large field of Republican candidates, and that's his split the vote and limited other candidates' delegates count so far. So it's going to be much more clear, though, from Super Tuesday next week if Trump can actually pull off the nomination, something which few believed last summer.
Of course, if you listen to the pundits, we weren't expected to win too much, and now we're winning the country. And soon the country is going to start winning.
Trump heads into most contests next week with a lead in the polls, and many political analysts say it will be tough to slow his momentum at this point. Texas is a crucial state next Tuesday. It's Texas Senator Ted Cruz's home turf, and he leads there in the polls by 8 points. If Trump manages to take that state and others he leads in next week, it would all but seal the nomination for the real estate mogul. U.S. President Barack Obama is making what is likely his final push to close Guantanamo prison. Obama presented his plan to lawmakers to close the facility this week and asked they give it a fair hearing.
Good morning, everybody.
According to administration officials, the Pentagon proposal proposes 13 potential sites on U.S. soil for the transfer of remaining detainees. Obama, in his own words, said he's clear-eyed about his decision to close the prison.
I think a lot of the American public are worried about terrorism, and in their mind, the notion of having terrorists held in the United States rather than in some distant place can be scary.
Obama reminded the American people dangerous terrorists are already being held within the U.S., and there have been no incidents thus far.
So, Bruce, what are the chances that Obama actually gets congressional backing to close this prison in Guantanamo?
Sure. This has been a goal of his since he was running for office for the first time in 2008, and lawmakers largely have opposed having these prisoners on American soil. So it's unlikely Congress is going to support it, but then it's most likely Obama's going to try and push it through with an executive order before the end of his term.
All right. We'll have to wait and see about that. Thank you, Bruce, for that.
My pleasure.
It was a burr cold today. Let's go straight to the Weather Center to get a check on what weather conditions are in store for us. Jihan, I know you gave us a warning last night, but it was absolutely freezing here in Korea today.
I know, it was so cold today. Well, an early spring cold snap or 꽃샘추위 gripped the entire nation, and due to that strong gusty winds, sensory temperatures remained below the freezing point here in Seoul.
But you know, looks can be deceiving because if you stayed indoors here in Seoul today, the weather looked absolutely beautiful with plenty of sunshine. But we hear some parts of this country got nearly 8 inches of snow.
That is right. Now, if we look at Doppler radar images, there were wet clouds hovering over the eastern coastal regions, dropping heavy snow of up to 21 centimeters in Ulsan. And tomorrow, Seoul and surrounding central regions will also see snow. Sunny skies to kick off the day, then the clouds will be replaced by the evening. Then late night light snow is in the forecast here in Seoul, which could linger till early Friday morning. And temperature-wise, it's going to rise a few notches for tomorrow, but still below average temperatures here in Seoul and other regions as well. So let's take a closer look at the readings for tomorrow. The daily low here in Seoul will kick off at -5 degrees Celsius, -3 for Daegu, and -2 over in Busan. And as for the daily highs, the daily high here in Seoul will top out at 4 degrees Celsius, 7 for Daejeon, Daegu, and Gwangju, while Busan will see a high of 8 degrees Celsius. Now, more wet days are in the forecast till Sunday with a mix of rain and snow. And it seems like early spring-like conditions will not set in until the first day of March. So till then, be sure to dress accordingly. Now that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that is our broadcast on this Wednesday night. I'm Moon Gon-young. Thank you as always for watching. We hope to see you right back here, same time tomorrow on NewsCenter.